Hello students and namaste everyone. Our today's topic for your standard 9th is English grammar part, figures of speech. Students, already we have studied 3 different lectures relating to the figures of speech, and our today's lecture will be your last lecture for the same topic, that is figures of speech, right? So we have almost discussed 21 figures of speech in 3 different parts. And in our today's 4th lecture, we'll be discussing the last 5 figures of speech, that is litotes or litotes, then it is synecdoche or synecdoche, then it is metonymy, then it will be epigram, and at the end we'll be studying transformed epithet. Okay, so let us begin with the first figure of speech for today, that is litotes. Okay. So number 22, it is litotes or litotes. Okay. So litotes or litotes is a figure of speech, right? Wherein a positive idea is conveyed by making the opposite negative. A positive idea is conveyed by making the opposite negative. Okay, opposite negative. So here a positive idea is conveyed by making the opposite negative. Okay, so or even one more meaning or definition we can have for litotes, right? So according to that, first I will tell you that hyperbole. Okay, so hyperbole we had seen, it is a kind of figure of speech wherein overstatement or exaggerated statements are used, right? But this figure of speech, that is litotes, is a figure of speech wherein understatement is made. Okay, and understatement in which, okay, so here in litotes an understatement is made in which an affirmative is expressed, and affirmative is expressed by the negative of contrary, by the negative of contrary. Okay, I'll explain you it. So first I'll write out the definition or meaning, right? And one more thing, what is important for litotes is litotes, okay, it always contains negative words, right? So litotes must always contain a negative, must always contain a negative. Okay, negative word means not, neither, nor, never, right? So those are the negative words. So in litotes you will always find one negative, right? Okay, so now we'll try to understand that meaning which I have written on the board. Here a positive idea is conveyed by making the opposite negative, by making the opposite negative, or That same thing is written over here. An understatement in which an affirmative. Affirmative means what? Again, you have seen in your transformation of sentence that there are different type of sentences, right? One are such which are negative sentences or statements, wherein the words like not, neither, nor are used, and the opposite of that are affirmative sentences, right? So here, an understatement in which an affirmative is expressed by the negative of contrary. Contrary means opposite, right? So the affirmative word, the affirmative meaning is conveyed by its opposite word along with a negative word. For that, I'll give you the example, right? For example, if I say not a bad singer, not a bad singer. Okay. Now, not means negative, bad. Okay. If I say not a bad singer, so the contrary of this word, contrary means opposite. Opposite of bad is good. So when I use a contrary word and a negative word, we will get a affirmative idea, right? So understatement in which an affirmative is expressed. What is expressed is affirmative is expressed. So if I have written that not a bad singer, it simply means not a bad singer means the singer is good. Not a bad, not is negative and the contrary is used. So opposite of bad is good, right? So not a bad singer means the person who is being talked about is a good singer. Okay. So by using negative word and a contrary, the idea which is expressed is affirmative. Okay. So good singer is affirmative. Another example I will give it to make it more clear. Not unhappy. Okay. Not unhappy. Okay. Not unhappy. Again a negative word. Opposite of unhappy means happy. Right. So if I say not unhappy, he is not unhappy. Not unhappy means he is actually happy. Okay. Not happy actually means the person is happy. So what we can understand is in your maths also you have studied that two negative words, okay, or negative ideas, when they get together we get a affirmative idea. Good singer, happy person, right? And not unhappy means ultimately the person is happy. So two negative creates one positive, that is affirmative. Okay. So I hope so the example is clear to you all. So just have a look at it properly. Okay. Then I'll have, or we will have one more example to understand it in a better way. Right. Fine. So I hope so these two examples are clear. So again we'll have one better example to understand this. Okay. The example goes like this. He hasn't any ears. He hasn't any ears at all. Okay. He hasn't any ears at all. So hasn't any. Okay. Hasn't, not means negative word, right? So here this line is actually taken from standard 10th poem. He hasn't any ears at all, from the poem How to Tell Wild Animals. Right. So according to that poem, what does this line mean? He hasn't any ears at all. So it is actually trying to say that a chameleon, right? It is actually trying to say that a chameleon is without ears. Hasn't any ears means without ears. Okay. Is without ears. Right. So here he had used this thing, hasn't any, means it was a negative word with the contrary, hasn't any, and the affirmative of this will become without. Right? The meaning, actual meaning of this will become without ears. So when any negative is used with the contrary and it expresses an affirmative idea, the figure of speech used is litotes or litotes. Okay. So I hope so. The figure of speech is, this figure of speech is clear to you all, right? Is chameleon. Okay. So now the next figure of speech which we'll see today is synecdoche. Okay. So for that I will just rub the board. Okay. So synecdoche is a figure of speech wherein a part represents a whole. That means a part is used to represent a whole or vice versa. Or a whole is used to represent a part. Okay, so I will write it on the board. 23rd. The figure of speech that is synecdoche. It is pronounced as synecdoche. Okay, or even the people say synecdoche. It is synecdoche. Right. So I will write down the meaning of it first. When a part is used instead of the whole. When the part is used instead of a whole or vice versa. That means first we will say that when a part is used for a whole or vice versa, means a whole, even a whole is used to represent a part, then the figure of speech used is synecdoche. Okay, here it's vice versa. That means opposite. Whole is used to represent a part. Now, what is whole and what is part? I didn't get that, right? So, let us take one example to understand it in a better way. Okay. So, I'll give you one or two examples for it. Example. If I say his face was tired. His face was tired. Right? So, is it possible that only the face will be tired? No. But when I am using this word, his face was tired, I actually mean to say that not only the face, but the whole person was tired. So that means a face, which is a part of a body, is used to represent the whole body. Right? So that is, a part is used instead of a whole. So the figure of speech will be synecdoche. We'll take one more example to understand this. Okay. The example is, check out my new wheels. Right? Check out my new out my new wheels. So my new wheels means what? Right, so a person is not trying to show the wheel of the vehicle. Right, so here the wheel is an example of, or it is a part of a car. Right, so here the wheel represents a car as a whole. If a person is bringing a new car, then he is actually trying to say, check out my new wheels. New wheels means my new car. Okay, so that is what the person is trying to say. So here, as I said, a part is used to represent a whole. Even we'll have more examples to understand it. Okay, so I'll speak out the example first. What is the head count? Head. What is the head count for next week's party? Okay, if someone tells you that what is the head count for next week's party, okay, so here the word head actually doesn't mean the only head, right? So it means the word head can refer to the number of people who are going to come. Even for the cattle also the word head is used, right? So what is the head count for next week's party, right? So when the word head is used, it can represent the people or even the cattle, right? So I hope so the example is clear to you all. The next example is, I am looking forward to breaking bread with you. I am looking forward to breaking bread with you. Again, here the word bread, right? So he is not actually trying to say that I will meet you and we'll sit together and we'll break the bread. No, he is actually trying to say that we will have food together. Bread actually represents the is a part. Bread is a part which represents actually whole. Right? In some foreign countries they use the word bread. Right? So when I say that I am looking forward to breaking bread with you, right? So here the word bread can be used to represent the food. Okay, so that is what is synecdoche. One more example similar to this one. Let's take my new wheels out for a spin. Let's take my new wheels out for a spin. Okay, out for a spin. Again, the wheels over here represents the vehicle. Okay, it might be a car or a two-wheeler or four-wheeler or three-wheeler, anything, right? So let's take my new wheels out for a spin. That means my new vehicle for a ride. Okay, so over there again the wheels represents the vehicle, right? So that is a synecdoche, and the examples which we discussed right now belongs to this thing, that wherein a part is used instead of a whole. Even I will give you some more examples wherein the whole is used to represent the part. So let us take example for that. The police were at my neighbor's house last night. Okay, the police, so here the word police I am talking about. The police were at my neighbor's house last night. What do you understand from this sentence? Right, so here police, right, it can be a one person or even it can be the whole group of organization or a whole group of people, right, who are actually the policemen, right? So the word police can be used to represent individual officers, as I said, versus the entire police force, right? Entire police force. So when I say the police were at my neighbor's house last night, so this police actually means the entire police force. Right? When I use the word police, it means It's the entire police force. But when I'm using it over here in this sentence, right, the police were at my neighbor's house last night. So do you think that the whole police force will be present at the neighbor's house? No. Right? It might be representing some of the individuals from the police force. So a whole is used to represent a part. Right? So I hope the example is clear. Okay. I'll give you one more example. I was interviewed by Forbes. I was interviewed. I was interviewed by Forbes. Right? Again, Forbes is the word. Right? Forbes means what? It is a very famous magazine. Right? Usually, who takes the interview of the distinguished personalities. Right? So I was interviewed by Forbes. So here, when the people say they were interviewed by Forbes, as I said, it is a kind of publication, right? So Forbes is a kind of publication, right? So usually who prints articles in their magazines about the distinguished people or personality, right? So when the person, if he or she says that I was interviewed by Forbes, so Forbes is a very big publication. So it doesn't mean that the Forbes, the whole publication had taken the interview. It simply means that a specific reporter from this publication, that is Forbes, had interviewed him or her. The word Forbes represents the whole publication, but actually here this whole is used to represent a part. That means not the whole publication had interviewed the person. It was actually a specific reporter who had interviewed. But the people, they usually use the words like this, that I was interviewed by Forbes. Forbes means a person, right? Here it actually means that a person or a specific reporter had interviewed me, who belonged to the Forbes publication. Okay, so this was synecdoche, right, where a part was used to represent a whole, or a whole is used to represent a part, right? So I hope so the figure of speech is clear to you, right? So moving ahead, we will see the next figure of speech for today, which is metonymy. Okay, so let us find it out. What does it mean? This is going to be our figure of speech number 24. Okay, so that is metonymy. Metonymy. Okay, so metonymy means what? Right, so it means change in name. Okay, it means change in name. It means change in name. When can we say that the figure of speech used is metonymy? When there is a change in name. Okay, so change in name means what? Right, change in name here means what? What actually I am trying to say is that here a name or word is used, a name or a word is used instead of another. A name or word is used instead of name or word is used instead of another. Okay. Again, I will give you one more meaning for this. right? So here an object or idea is referred to, or here an object or idea is referred to is referred to by the name, is referred to by the name of something, by the name of something closely associated, right? Name of something closely associated with it, closely associated with it. Okay, so when an object or idea is referred to by the name of something closely associated with it as opposed to by its own name, as opposed to by its own name, the figure of speech is metonym, right? So here also we have written the same thing. It means change in name. A name or word is used instead of another or the same name, where here an object or idea is referred to by the name of something closely associated with it as opposed to by its own name. So while you read it out, it's a bit difficult to understand, but I'll give you example to make it more clear to you, right? Example for India is progressing in the field of IT sector. So when I say, or if someone says that India is progressing in the field of IT sector, do you think that India is really progressing? That means India is progressing. That means here, actually when we use the word India over here, India is progressing, but it is actually the people, right? A name or word is used instead of another. So though here it is written India is progressing in the field of IT sector, we actually mean to say that not India but the people of India, right? So here India means people of India. Okay, it is the people of India who is progressing in the field of IT sector, right? So that means a change in name, right? So here actually it should be the people of India are progressing in the field of IT sector, but instead of people of India we have used the word India. India is progressing in the field of IT sector. So the figure of speech used is metonym. Okay, we'll take another example. We will swear loyalty to the crown. Okay, another example is we will swear loyalty to the crown. C-R-O-W-N, crown. Okay, we will swear loyalty to the crown. is it so the people, they show their loyalty towards the crown? No. So usually crown here represents, like the name is changed actually, it is crown, but the crown here actually represents the king or maybe the royal person. Royal person, the person who belongs to the family of the king, right? So when the word crown is used, right, here it actually represents the king or the royal person. Okay, so that is metonymy. Now I'll give you one more example, right? We'll not write it on the board, I'll just speak, okay, or I'll just dictate it. So the example is, I couldn't understand them. I couldn't understand them. They spoke in their mother tongue. They spoke in their mother tongue. So what does this tongue represent over here? Right? They spoke in their mother tongue. So is anything as such like mother tongue? No. So when we use mother tongue, so tongue actually represents the language, right? Right? They spoke in their own language or their native language. But instead of that, the word used is tongue for language. So the figure of speech is metonymy. I hope so. The meaning is clear to you all, right? So this was metonymy, where the name is changed or a name or a word is used instead of another, or even we can say an idea or an object is referred to by the name of something closely associated with it, right? Right? So we saw the words, they are closely associated with each other. Okay? So when this type of thing is there, the figure of speech is metonymy. Okay? Now the next figure of speech which we'll see today is epigram. Okay, after this. So let us find it out what epigram means. Okay. Fine. So the next figure of speech is epigram. Number 25. So what is epigram? So epigram is basically a brief pointed saying or a statement, right? Epigram is a brief pointed saying or a statement. So let me write it on the board. Brief. Brief means short or small. Brief, pointed, saying or a statement. Right? Brief, pointed saying or statement which is introduced with an aim, right? Which is introduced with an aim to excite, right? To excite, surprise or attract attention. With an aim to excite, surprise or attract attention. Okay, so usually it is a kind of saying or a statement, simple, right? But it is such a kind of saying or statement which usually aims at exciting, surprising or attracting the attention of the readers, right? So to understand it in a simple way, we'll take one or two example, right? Example, life. Okay, the example is life is but life is but an empty dream. Is but an empty dream. Okay, life is but an empty dream. Now, to understand it, right, we need to understand what this line actually means. Right, it is just a kind of simple sentence or a statement. Right, so when it is said that life is but an empty dream, it is a kind of pointed statement or saying, as I said, that tells us that life is short and passes away like a dream. Life is short and it passes away like a dream. So that is what this line is trying to explain us, right? So that is a simple sentence or a statement, and therefore it is epigram. We'll have another example to understand it. That is, mankind must put an end to the war. Mankind must put an end to the war. Right? Mankind must put an end to the war, or war will put an end to the mankind. Right? So what is being talked about, we can understand. Men must put an end to the war, right? We all know that war is very much destructive, and if the mankind, if they keep on doing the war, a situation will come, right, that because of war, the mankind, that means everything will be destroyed, and even the human beings, they will be dead, right? So that is what is explained or told over here. So this is an example of epigram, right, where a brief pointed statement or saying is introduced with the aim to excite, surprise or attract attention, right? So this was epigram, and now I hope so this is clear to you all. Now the last figure of speech which is left for today is transformed epithet. Right, so epithet means what? Epithet means an adjective, right, which is used to describe a noun or a pronoun. Okay, we all know what is the meaning of adjective. Okay, so let us find out what does transformed epithet mean. So number 26 is transformed epithet. Okay, the last figure of speech for today is transformed epithet. Okay, so I'll just read out the meaning of it. Transformed epithet simply means that is an adjective or attribute is shifted from its actual place to another place in the same sentence, right? So when an adjective, okay, or an attribute is changed, right? What does transformed epithet means? When an adjective or attribute is changed or shifted from its actual place to another place. Changed or shifted from its actual place to another place from its actual place to another place in the same sentence. in the same sentence. So the figure of speech used over here is transferred epithet. Right? Transferred, that means from one place shifted from its actual place to another. That means it is transferred. As I said, epithet means adjective. And again we all know what does adjective mean. Adjective is usually a word that describes a noun or a pronoun. Okay? So let us see some examples, or let us find out some examples to understand it. Right? Example, I'll dictate one or two examples, then we'll go to the board. So the example for transferred epithet is, I had a wonderful day. I had a wonderful day. So when I say I had a wonderful day, so actually the noun over there is day. So do you think that the day is wonderful? Right? So the day is not itself wonderful actually. Right? The day itself is not wonderful, but it is actually the speaker. That means the person I, or the pronoun I. Right? So it is actually the speaker who had a wonderful day. That means here the epithet wonderful, the epithet or adjective wonderful, right, is actually describing the kind of day the speaker experienced. Okay, it is describing a kind of day the speaker had experienced. So therefore it is transferred epithet. Okay, I'll write it on the board. Example, I had a wonderful day. So if we talk about this, right, the day itself is never wonderful, right? So this is the epithet or the adjective. Okay, it is the epithet or the adjective. So when I say that I had a wonderful day, as I am trying to explain you that the day itself is never wonderful. It is the person. Okay, it is the person who is having a good experience, and therefore he is experiencing a wonderful day. Right? So here the epithet or adjective wonderful is actually describing the kind of day. It is actually describing the kind of day the speaker, that is I, had experienced. So I hope so it is clear to you, right? Next example is, the builders were working at a dizzy height. The builders were working at a dizzy height. Okay. So here the noun is actually height. Height. What kind of height? Dizzy height. So no one can describe what a dizzy height can be. Dizzy means usually feeling where a person is uncomfortable. Right? Many people, they have a phobia that if they reach to a certain height, they start feeling uncomfortable. They they don't feel comfortable, and that is what is known as dizziness. Right? So no one can describe, as I said, that what a dizzy height is. Right? So it may differ from person to person. Okay. So let us find out what is written over here. Right? So if we talk about dizzy, the meaning means not feel comfortable. In Gujarati we say chakkar aava. Right? Chakrana, dimag chakrana. So there is dizzy. Okay. So dizzy height means, let us find out what does that mean. So heights cannot be literally dizzy. They have, right, as it is explained over here, they don't have any kind of feelings. Right. So heights, they do not have any kind of feelings. But here the epithet is dizzy, right, which is transferred, okay, or which describes the height. Right, so that is actually trying to describe that how much high, okay, the height will be for a particular person to feel dizzy. right? So height itself is not dizzy. It describes actually the person, okay? Different people or person are there, right? So who at different point of time they feel dizziness, so that can be said as dizzy. So actually the dizzy, that is the epithet which is transferred. It is actually for a feeling for the people, right? So the figure of speech is transferred epithet over here. So please go through this sentence and try to understand what is given over there, right? Okay, so it describes that how much height a person needs to feel dizziness. Okay, so that is transferred epithet. One more example I'll give it to you, right? He hears the last voice at night. He hears the last voice at night. The patrolling cars. Sorry. Patrolling cars. Again, it is transferred epithet by patrolling cars. The noun over here is cars along with the adjective. Okay. So here we can understand that this is the epithet which is transferred, right? It is not the patrolling cars, right? Cars are not patrolling, right? So when we say that the patrolling car, so here the word patrolling is transferred, right, from the police, okay, to the car, okay, which is actually closely connected with each other. So when we say that he hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, right? So it is actually the car in which the police are moving from one place to another and doing the patrolling. It is not the cars, it is not the patrolling cars, right? So it is actually the police, or if we talk about this poem, the tiger in the zoo, it is the gatekeeper or the watchman who are actually doing the patrolling work. Clear? So I hope so. The meaning is clear to you all. So transferred epithet, that is simple. An adjective or an attribute is changed or shifted from its actual place to another place in the same sentence, right? So here it should be, he hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars. So actually instead of patrolling cars means the epithet patrolling actually describes what? It describes the police or maybe the watchmen or the keepers of the zoo, right? So that is it. And the last example, all his young days into the harbors where his ball went, right? So the days can never be young. The days can never be young. So young days here, so young here means the epithet or the adjective which is describing the days, but actually, as I said, the days can never be young. It is the youth, right? So here the young boy who is actually being talked about in the poem is described. Okay, so the days cannot be young. As I said, that the young here describes the young boy. Okay, so the adjective young here has been transferred from boy, okay, to his days with which he is associated. Okay, so I hope so. The last figure of speech, that is transferred epithet, is clear to you all. And with this last figure of speech, our topic for figures of speech gets over. So that's it for today, everyone. I'll end my lecture over here. Take care of yourself, everyone. Stay healthy and stay safe. Bye. Take care of yourself.